So to actually see people put in their hard-earned money to invest in Actively Black, the action itself was an incredible feeling. But then reading the comments of people just saying how much the brand meant to them, how much they felt represented by the brand, how much they felt a part of it, and they were doing this because they wanted to be part of something just bigger than themselves that helped the Black community. I was just reading through all of the comments, all of them, and there's an emotional connection to this, right? Normally you think of when you talk about investing or a business deal,
it's
the thought
transactional.
is, it's very transactional. How much, okay, I'm putting this in, how much can I get out of this? You know what I mean? What's going to be my return on this? And while, yes, we are definitely building this that with the hopes that we'll be able to provide a return for our investors, but most, if not all, the comments, I didn't see anything transactional. It was really just about this feeling of being a part of Actively Black, and that meant so much to me, man.
Welcome back to Adventure Capital, a podcast exploring the world of community rounds. I'm Johnny Price, president of Wefunder, and today I interview Lanny Smith, the founder of Actively Black, about his personal journey from NBA player through devastating career-ending injury to startup founder, and about Actively Black's journey and their Wefunder community round. Lanny is passionate about building stronger and stronger community around his company, and so it was a no-brainer for him to invite that community to invest in Actively Black. An incredibly driven and determined person, I found this conversation with Lanny deeply inspiring, and I hope you do too. Before we get on with the podcast, we're required to make it clear that anything we say here should not be interpreted as investment advice, recommendations, or soliciting investments in any company. And now, here's Lanny.
Lanny Smith, founder and CEO of Actively Black. Welcome to Adventure Capital, man. Good to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Thank you.
Super stoked to get into your Wefunder raise. It was an explosive one. You've built an incredible community, people that love the brand, love the mission, love everything you stand for. And it was really cool to see them kind of back you and invest in this brand they believe in, this founder they believe in. So I want to spend the majority of this podcast talking about that. But let's kick off. Do you want to give us a quick overview of what you're building with Actively Black?
Yeah, man. Actively Black is a premium athleisure wear brand that was launched and is being built with the sole focus of uplifting and reinvesting back into the Black community. It's a brand that provides this representation in a space and in an industry that I feel like we've lacked from a standpoint of ownership. You know what I mean? There's obviously multi-billion-dollar brands in this space that I believe have profited billions and billions of dollars off of Black culture, Black talent, Black consumerism, but lack Black ownership and, in my opinion, haven't adequately reinvested back into the Black community in a meaningful way. And so the idea and the concept was that we were going to stop asking for a seat at the table, build our own table, and in that way we can serve our people in a way that we see fit.
Love that. What's the journey been like so far? And actually, let's back up. What's your personal journey? Take us back. How did Lanny's story and how you came to start Actively Black?
Yeah, I have zero background in anything that I'm doing right now. I have no design background. I was a basketball player, man, former athlete. My dream was to play in the NBA. I played my college basketball at the University of Houston. Ended up signing with the Sacramento Kings in the NBA in 2009. And, roughly 30 plus days after signing my first NBA contract, non-guaranteed, by the way, tore the articular cartilage in my left knee. I had 2 microfracture surgeries and my professional basketball career was over with just like that. So, my journey into entrepreneurship was really kind of sparked by this life pivot that I had to make, when the first dream that I was chasing ended so abruptly. And the first brand that I launched it's called Active Faith. It's a faith-based sports apparel brand. and Anthony Tolliver and Stephen Curry are my two partners in that company, and launched that out of my mom's house, not knowing what I was doing at all. I mean, I remember Googling how do you come up with a company name, spending.
Hey,
I
this
tell
was
people,
before the days of ChatGPT, right?
yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like ChatGPT can spit out a whole business plan for you at this point. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? At the time, it was really, I mean, I tell people I went to YouTube University. I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours just teaching myself how to learn Photoshop and Illustrator because I don't have design background, on how do I at least just get these ideas in my head onto mock-ups on the computer. And then I couldn't afford a website. You know, they were charging $20,000, $30,000 for the type of website that I wanted. So went to YouTube University, learned how to build my own website. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of self education and trying to develop skills that have helped obviously now to today. But built Active Faith, had some early success with that. I saw the power of building a brand that was more than just the product, that was purpose driven, that was message driven. And I saw how it was having this positive effect on the faith based community that was interacting with Active Faith. And had some different experiences that planted the seed in my mind, about if I can create this type of brand for the faith-based community, what would it look like if I created this for the Black community? You know what I mean? And so I put the idea on the shelf. 2018, the movie Black Panther came out, and it was such an inspiration for me just that the power of representation, you know what I mean? Like to see a Black superhero on the screen that had skin like mine, hair like mine, the messaging in the movie, the way that I saw the diaspora come together around this movie. I remember walking out of the theater saying, I want to create a brand that makes my people feel the way that movie made us feel. And then put the idea on the shelf again. I moved to Los Angeles about 6 months before the pandemic hit. We were on lockdown, and then we all experienced 2020 from all of our different vantage points. And so after the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all of the social uprising and everything that happened during 2020, I started to see all of these corporations and brands start making these performative declarations about what they were going to do for the Black community, and a lot of those brands
Performative is
in,
the word, right? Because
yeah,
it's been interesting to me and honestly quite depressing to see how a lot of the kind of performative commitments that were made, around that time, like in a new context in 2025, have been exposed as very hollow.
yep.
And it's I'm sure that is a lot more frustrating and anger inducing for you than it is for me, but
Honestly,
yeah.
I wouldn't say more frustrating or angering, because I called it out in real time. When it was
Yeah, it's no
happening,
surprise to you.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is what I knew was going to happen, and in a certain aspect, it's kind of positioned Actively Black to be in a very prime position right now because of all the brand building that we have done over the last
Yeah.
4 or 5 years.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot of our audience that maybe didn't really understand what we were trying to build with Actively Black, or maybe weren't ready to jump in and support. Now they're like, oh, we have no choice but to support our own brands and build up our own brands. And they're looking for the brands that they can support. And they're like, oh, Actively Black, you know what I mean? And it's like
Right.
everything that we've been building since 2020 has now put us
Yeah.
in a position where when our people are looking for us, not only can they find us, but they can see everything that we've been doing over the last 4 years. Whether it's the social proof, whether it's the collaborations, whether it's seeing what we've actually been doing and giving back to the community over the last 4 years. So you have that authenticity about what our brand is and what it stands for that has made it's the perfect time for our brand to exist right now.
Yeah. And that's a big part of why I work at WeFunder as well. It probably seems a little less valid somehow coming from the white guy on this podcast versus the black guy on this podcast. But I mean, I work at WeFunder in large part because 1% of venture capital dollars goes to black founders today. And maybe DEI is a little less, fashionable in vogue now than it was, a few years back, but I don't think equity is anything to be ashamed of. I don't think
Right.
inclusion is anything to be ashamed of, or diversity is anything to be ashamed of. And it might be less popular or fashionable now than it was in 2020, but the percentage of dollars flowing to Black founders hasn't increased over the last few years. The percentage of dollars going to female founders hasn't increased. And by the way, if you're a Republican, like 77% of venture capital dollars today go to 3 states: California, New York, and Massachusetts, and they're all blue. So we can play this game by geography as well as gender and ethnicity. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm stoked to get more Black founders and Black founded companies funded on WeFunder by investors who look like them. Because part of the challenge there is like all the VCs are white dudes like me in Silicon Valley funding white dudes in Silicon Valley. And it's like, I don't think those two things are a coincidence. So yeah, it's
Right.
really cool. We'll talk more about this, but like that's a big part of our mission at WeFunder is let's empower women of color in Tennessee, where I live, to be angel investors.
Yep.
And then hopefully we'll get more capital. They can democratically vote on which founders, which startups are getting funded. And then hopefully we can get more capital flowing to founders that look like you, as well as founders that look like me. One thing, before we get to the WeFunder raise, I just want to touch on one thing that you mentioned in your story, right? The injury that you sustained and then basically having to pivot your career. So I would love one piece of advice that you would have for someone that goes through something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you set your whole life's goal on
Yeah.
making it to the NBA. You went through college, you got the NBA contract with the Kings, and then that rug was ripped out from underneath you in like a completely shocked and, like very violent, abrupt way.
Yeah.
How did you like cope with that? Do you have any tips for people on like strategies
Yeah.
for like resilience in a situation like that?
You know what? It's interesting because I can say that to this day, there's moments where I still feel effects of it. You know what I mean? It's almost it's a mourning in a sense, right? It's like the death of this dream, the death of this thing that you have invested so much of yourself into, and not just invested so much of yourself
Mm.
into, but that you loved. You know what I mean? Like something
Right,
that you
right.
that you loved. And so when you think about losing a loved one, there's that painful shock. There's all the everything that comes with that loss. And then the further and further away you get from it, yeah, time can heal different things, but like there's always a
Mm.
part of you that still misses that someone, that misses that presence in your life. You know what I mean? And so even
Yeah.
now there's
Mm.
times where, I can feel like,
The
you know,
loss.
a regret or a missing out on something or whatever the case may be. But I think in the moment, um, I went through all of the stages, man. I went through the depression. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I went through the loss
The
of
anger.
identity and not knowing who I was outside of being a basketball player and having
Mm.
that identity crisis. Um, you know, I guess they're the stages of grief. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
really you're
Yeah.
mourning the
It's
loss
loss, as
of,
you
of
say.
the death of a piece of you, of a part of you,
Yeah.
and um, my faith was something that I really leaned on very heavily in having to accept and realize that God had a different plan for me, and that
Yeah. And
plan
your
was not.
identity is more than a basketball player.
Yeah, you know what I mean, and that's a it's a tough acceptance and realization to come to, because you normally start so young that
Mm.
your self-worth, your self-identity, your
Yeah.
self-esteem, everything has been tied into this thing, and it just grows. That bond grows stronger and stronger as you get older, and then boom, it's
Mm.
ripped away, and you're trying to figure this thing out. And then the other side of it is the opportunity cost of all the sacrifice and the hours that you poured into this one thing. Because the truth of the matter is, similar to entrepreneurship and building a successful business, the percentages of success of making it are so small that you have to be laser focused, almost obsessive, and putting everything that you have into this thing. So when you're doing that, you are also kind of missing out on maybe the education on other things, or the
100%.
interest in other things, or being able to explore other things, because you're so singularly focused on this thing. So now you wake up, that thing is gone. Your classmates have done internships, and they've been planning for a career that's not based on their athletic ability and all these things. So now you're behind in the sense of the social construct of how society is built. So now you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do for my career? What am I going to do for a job? How am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to take care of my family? And there's fear. There's real fear that you feel with that, this fear of the unknown. So for me, it was like this faith that I had a purpose that lived outside of just playing basketball. And I just had to find that, however long that took. And then so I did a self analysis of what are my passions in life. Maybe, and I tell this to other athletes and other people that I speak to about this. Don't ask yourself, what else am I good at? Ask yourself, what else am I interested in? Because it's hard for you to be good at several different things when you've dedicated and focused all of your time onto
Right.
this one thing.
That's a
So
good
then I
point.
started
But
looking at,
if you're passionate about something, especially if you're super driven, which obviously to play in the NBA or college, or if you're an elite level athlete, you are a super driven person.
yeah, yeah,
And that, by the way, is like, I imagine, sure, there's an opportunity cost to some extent, but also probably a lot of your entire life up until the point of getting injured, it actually, in many respects, was probably incredible training ground for entrepreneurship.
one thousand
Because,
percent,
yeah, it's like being
one
a
thousand percent.
startup founder is incredibly hard, and it's perseverance and drive and getting on the in the gym, on the training court.
There's
Uh,
multiple ways that you can actually transfer and translate all of the
right,
things that made you what you were as an athlete into, being an entrepreneur or whatever that next thing is, because there's a level of dedication that is normal to
right,
you that isn't necessarily normal
yeah,
to everybody else. You know what I'm saying? There's a level
yeah.
of, there's also a level of, if I'm just being real, there's a level of delusion, right? Let's be honest.
That's
Let's be
such a great point. The psychology of it. It's like if you're deluding yourself that you'll actually be able to make it to the NBA, probably
yeah.
the odds are similar to like deluding yourself that you can make a apparel company that is like, going to do millions of dollars in revenue.
Yo,
And yeah, that's
one
such a good
one
point.
1000%. Like, you got to think about it. There's 450 positions for players in the NBA. That's it.
Mm,
450. There's a
mm,
million kids who think they're going to the NBA. Everybody,
mm.
everybody who plays basketball, that's the dream, right? So to think that you're going to be one of those 450, it is kind of, it's crazy, it's delusional, you know what I'm saying? And then when you
Yeah,
think of the percentages of, to start like an apparel brand and think that that's
right.
going to be successful and it's going to do multiple millions of dollars, those things, you got to be delusional to think that you're
Yeah,
going to be the one who's going to create this and it's going to break the mold against all odds. So to be honest with you, that same obsessive work ethic, that same
drive.
dedication, and that same delusion is what I
Yeah.
use every day in what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I love that, man. And yeah, just to draw a line under what you were saying before, right? Like, find what you're passionate about. And if you're driven, like you need to be to play sport at a very high level, if you're working on something you're passionate about, and obviously you're passionate about basketball, if you combine that interest with the relentless drive,
Yep.
then you can probably go pretty
Yep.
far in that direction.
But the last thing
Um,
I'll say on that, the piece of advice that I would say is, for anybody making that transition, whether it's from being an athlete or a previous career, whatever it is, there's a level of humility that you have to be able to accept, and understanding that you're starting from ground zero in whatever that next thing is, right? So you could take the work ethic, you could take the passion, you could take all those things and
Yeah.
transfer it, but whatever success you had in that arena doesn't automatically transfer. So I've seen people where they've been unable to let go of maybe the ego that was built in being who they were as an athlete, and then they step into the next thing and you're expecting to kind of dominate or have the response from other people in that other thing, and it doesn't happen that way. You starting from the bottom,
Yeah.
and you gotta be able to know that I gotta let this ego go. I have to humble myself in knowing I'm starting from the bottom in something else. I can rise to the top, but I can't take who I was as Lanny the basketball player and automatically that's who I am as Lanny the founder. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you have to kind of roll back and remember the beginning. Even though I became an elite level basketball player, when I first started playing basketball, dribbling the ball, I lost the ball. There was thousands of hours that went into me dribbling that basketball to where I could do it with my eyes closed, and it felt like it was second nature and a part of me. But that's because of all the time that I put into it. So when you start over, you got to think about it. That's like your first time picking up that basketball. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna lose the ball. You keep putting that time in and that dedication, and you get better and better. And yeah, so
That's a good point. And I guess you are there now. You're the elite level NBA player now as an apparel founder.
I wouldn't call it that.
Well, I think a lot of people would, and the VCs that backed you would, right? So that's the story of how you came to launch Actively Black, and then pandemic, Black Lives Matter, and you just like exploded. And talk through some of your highlights, because the highlights on your campaign, I feel like, was some of the sexiest We Funded campaign highlights in history, right? It's like, we outfitted Team Nigeria at the Olympics,
Yeah.
and here's Barack Obama wearing our stuff, and we're back by New Voices Fund, Black Star Fund, and we did I don't know how much million in revenue, and it was like, but what are some of the highlights?
Yeah, I mean, you named some of them. I mean, we had the official collaboration with Marvel for Wakanda Forever, which was like a full circle moment for me because I told you the first movie, Black Panther, was one of the inspirations behind the brand. So that was just really cool. I think we were just 2 years old at the time when we were able to have that collaboration.
Wow.
We've had collaborations with with Disney, Star Wars, Muhammad Ali's family, the Tupac estate, Martin Luther King's family, Malcolm X's family,
Wow.
The Michael Jackson estate, Bob
Yeah.
Marley. It's like it's
It's literally like
these are
that's
these are so
yeah,
legend these are legends that
yeah,
I still have to pinch myself, when I'm
yeah,
looking at some of these assets that they share with me. And I'm like, yo, I can't believe I even have access to be able to create with these assets. You know what I mean? And then outfitting Team Nigeria in the Summer Olympics in Paris was just one of those moments that I'll just never forget because you're talking about at the time, a 3-year-old Black owned brand that I launched out of my apartment
yeah,
during COVID on the biggest stage in the entire world. And
yeah,
I've got this image that I still need to print out and have it blown up and framed. It was on one of the track events, and you see 3 track athletes in the frame, and there's
yeah,
the United States track athlete, and you see the Nike check. Then you
yeah.
see, I can't remember who the other country was, and it was Puma, and then you see Team Nigeria, and you see the Actively Black
Amazing.
logo, and so you see
Yes.
Nike, Puma, Actively Black. You know what I mean? On the biggest stage in the whole
Amen.
world.
Yeah. Love
Yeah,
that.
insane.
Um, so that's so I would say NBA level athlete, elite level, but now as an apparel founder, I mean, some of those, collabs like the Nigeria thing that you're talking
Yeah,
about, that's you're well on your way, I would say. So and you raised from VCs,
yep,
um, and then last year, say, as well as raising from VCs, and I love when brands and companies will raise from VCs and from their community.
yep, yep,
It doesn't need to be an either or thing. Sometimes it's like, maybe should I do VCs or should I raise from my customers and community? Do
yep,
both, raise from VCs, take a board seat, add value, help with industry connections. They've trodden the path before. They can give you great insights, etc. Help with validation, signal, etc. Also raise from your community. Let your community share in the upside. Turn your community into more loyal customers, more excited brand ambassadors and evangelists. So do both. You did both, but you'd raise from VCs. Why then did you say, last year, towards the end of last
Yeah.
year, okay, we'll do a community round. Let's invite our customers to invest as well.
Yeah, I think that was always part of the plan for me, regardless if we had raised from VC or not. And it was more purpose driven than anything. You know what I mean? Like what
Yeah.
our brand is about uplifting the Black community.
And Black ownership. You said that
Yeah,
right at the start of
ownership.
this
Yeah,
podcast, right? Yeah.
yeah. And so when you think about um, the power of group economics, the power of how do we create an opportunity where this brand is not just Black owned because the founder is Black, but like the Black community can own this brand. You know what I mean? Like that was like the thought that we're building this tribe. And if you study or read or look at, whether it's um, African tribes or indigenous Native American tribes, the entire society was kind of built around this it's a communal society, right? Like it's like we all own this land, we all own this thing, we're all contributing to this thing that benefits all of us. You know what I'm saying? I think you know Western society, the capitalism and the way that has kind of taken over everything has led to the rise in like this individualistic view of things. Like I'm gonna make it, I gotta make it myself, you gotta make it by yourself, and where there's competition between us and all that kind of thing, where I think those tribal societies, it was more of this communal thing. Like, I'm not in competition with you, let's collaborate, let's go hunt together and bring back the food for everybody in our community. You know what I mean? Let's build the housing for everybody in our community. And so I think for Actively Black, the purpose was always to build this communal brand that we all benefited from. It wasn't just about selling as much apparel as possible. The world doesn't really need another apparel brand. You know what I'm saying? This is bigger than just another apparel brand. It's a movement, and the apparel is just like the uniform for the movement. You know what I'm saying? And so to raise from the community was not something that was like, well, where do we go get some more money from? It really was always part of the plan anyway, that I wanted the tribe to own a piece of the brand. So
Yeah. I remember speaking with you about that, and the tribe kind of nomenclature as we were kind of gearing up to launch the WeFunder round. Yeah, the founder of Replit said this. We have a case study on the Replit raise on our communityround.com website, but they raised like an 80 million Series B. I think Andreessen Horowitz led it, one of the best VCs in the world, right? And then did 5 million to their community. And the messaging that he went out with was, we want to let our community share in the upside.
Yep.
Which I feel like was very, very important and kind of central to your reasoning to launch it. So we launched it, late last year, and I'm looking at your page now. 1.56 million raised, 1,267 investors. Like, I imagine that felt good to just like, you've built the customer base, the social media following.
Yeah.
You already know that customers love the brand.
Yeah.
But to see over 1,000 of your customers like put their money behind that love for the brand, and the messages, right, that they send you kind of when they invest, hundreds and hundreds of messages of support and kind of admiration from your customers who are now owners and investors with you on the journey, felt good, right?
Man, I got emotional, to be honest with you, man, just reading those comments, because I knew that there was some demand for it. Like from the beginning, when we launched Actively Black, people used to write in like, how do I invest in this? How do I invest in Actively Black? So people were already asking about it.
Yeah.
And when we finally opened it up to allow that to happen, you still don't really know okay, what's the response really going to be? Like, I hear people saying that they want to invest, but what's really going to actually happen? So to actually see people put in their hard-earned money to invest in Actively Black, the action itself was an incredible feeling. But then reading the comments of people just saying how much the brand meant to them, how much
Right.
they felt represented by the brand, how much they felt a part of it, and they were doing this because they wanted to be part of something just bigger than themselves that helped the Black community. I was just reading through all of the comments, all of them, and there's an emotional connection to this, right? Normally, you think of
Yeah.
when you talk about investing or a business deal,
Yeah. It's
the thought
transactional.
is, yeah, it's very transactional. How much? Okay, I'm putting this in. How much can I get out of this? You know what I mean?
Right.
What's going to be my
Yeah.
return on this? And while yes, we are definitely building this that with the hopes that we'll be able to provide a return for our investors, but most, if not all, the comments, I didn't see anything transactional. It was really just about this feeling of being a part of Actively
Yes.
Black, and that meant so much to me, man. So yeah, it was beautiful.
And of course, for a consumer facing business like yours, the more emotion there is, the more connection, the more belief in the mission, the more kind of passion about around the purpose, that actually then will increase the financial returns because that's how you build a brand,
Yeah,
and then that's how you grow a brand, and that's how you generate more revenue and profits, then
yeah.
you generate a return for investors. So these two things actually go in hand, and it's this beautiful kind of like flywheel where the comments, maybe the motivations are more around the mission, the purpose than the money, but then actually interestingly that increases the financial returns as well.
And the funny thing about that is, unfortunately, a lot of the institutional investors and the VCs, they don't seem to understand that aspect of it, because when you think about some of these corporations and these multi-billion dollar brands, right? They're pushing their product, but then they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising and marketing to make the consumer feel a
Yeah.
certain way, right? They're actually
Yes.
trying to evoke emotion when
Totally.
really their entire goal is just to move the product anyway, right? And so what I was trying to explain to some of these institutional investors is we have that emotional connection already because of our authenticity, because of who we actually are and how people see themselves in the brand. And so it's like the inverse, or it just changes the order in which it happens. So maybe we
Yes.
don't have all of the revenue right now, and then we go out and we try to expand that by getting people to be emotionally invested. We have the emotional connection, which
Yes.
creates these lifetime customers. It's not a gimmicky thing. It's not a trendy thing. This is actual emotional connection that somebody feels to the
Yeah.
brand, that you'll be able to speak to them not just right now, but the next 6 months, the next 6 years,
Yeah.
the next 10 years. They are
Yeah.
emotionally tied to this. And I
Yeah.
think the short term growth that a lot of VCs are looking for. They want that immediate, like, we're putting in this
Yeah.
money. We want this to double and triple and quadruple immediately so we can see that quick growth. I think that that they miss out on some of the
Yeah.
seeds that are planted that maybe you don't see the immediate growth or return
Yeah.
on, but it
Totally.
builds over time on something that is real. You know what I'm saying? That
It's
people
more
actually,
sustainable, it's more organic, it's more deep rooted
yeah,
versus like spending tons of money on Facebook ads. It's like I'm trying to think of what the word is. It's almost like a sugar high, or like a kind of,
yeah,
like unsustainable kind of, bump. And those channels, that there is more of a diminishing return.
yep,
And people talk about getting addicted to the drugs of digital ad spend, right? And obviously, not to say you're not spending money on ads, like, and that's all good, but if you can also drive this like deep customer loyalty, tribe mentality, like feeling of ownership from the community, from your customers, that's a very healthy, as you say, organic kind of
yeah. And
long-term
we've done both.
sustainable approach
We're,
to
we're,
growth.
we're doing
Yeah,
both, right? It's like we're
yeah,
also we're also running ads on
of
social media, which I
course, yeah,
think for any brand that's a startup brand in this space of e-com and social media and social e-com
Yeah,
really, you don't necessarily have to, but when you think about the lane and the industry that we're in,
of course.
where you have the Nikes and the Adidas and the Under Armour of
Yeah,
the world that are on Lululemon, that you can see the billboards and the TV commercials and you see them everywhere. The power of social media to me is that you can find your audience, your niche audience that you can speak directly to. And even if you want to run ads that are targeted to your specific audience, that's a way that we have been able to kind of grow our brand awareness while at the same time that organic growth has been growing as well.
yeah, and the two things beautifully reinforce each other, right? Like this, the more like loyalty and 1,000 owners, then
Yep.
that they can be your marketing team. And then when you're pushing out, posts on social, it's like, hey guys, help us bump this up in the algorithm, help us get the word out,
Yep.
and you can leverage them. We were just looking before the podcast started about like that investor community page you have now, and like all these hundreds of investors and how they can help you. That's really a part of our vision at WeFunder. Is just as the motivation to invest is not transactional, it's based on the mission, the purpose, the community. So like the value that you're getting from running a community around on WeFunder is not just financial value, it's not just money, but it's like you now have this army of evangelists and supporters and
Yep.
champions who you can put to work to help you grow Actively Black, or help you with recruiting or product feedback or connections to potential partners or other institutional investors, et cetera, et cetera. And it's been really cool since we've rolled out that investor community feature. We're just seeing more and more examples of that, of like founders looking through that list, like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Reaching out to that investor, they make a useful connection, and trying to see more kind of value coming out of the community beyond just the money. But yeah, we're kind of running out of time here. I need to let you get back to running the business. You're a very busy man. I guess any last kind of pieces of advice, like for a founder, maybe in the kind of apparel sector, kind of considering launching a community round, like what they should think about or consider as they evaluate whether to do it, and like when it comes to actually running the community round, like
Yeah.
what worked well for you? How should they go about it?
Yeah. One, I think for us, I can only speak from our experience, but transparency is such a
Right.
huge part of this, right?
Mhm.
You're asking people to part with their hard-earned money that they went to work for, that they earn, to invest in
Right.
something, to believe in you in something, you know what I mean? And so I think
Yeah.
that there's that trust has to be
Yeah.
based on something real. And so that transparency, good, bad, and different. And I think for us as a brand, we've always kind of just had this transparent vibe about us, on social. I share the wins, losses, and everything in between. You know what I mean? And so, whether we just got a new deal and we're excited about it, or we got passed over for this deal and it didn't happen, I've shared the good and the bad. You know what I mean? And I think because of that, my tribe, my community, my following, they trust me, and that's probably the biggest to me the biggest thing. The other part about it is like execution and showing up for your tribe, for your community in a way where they have the faith that um, this isn't a scam. This isn't something just for you to personally benefit. Like, you're really trying to build something that is legitimate. I think people now can kind of read through the BS. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that authenticity is going to be your best asset. Yeah, you're sharing your wins, the milestones, the financials, the revenue, all of that. But what I've learned is that, especially for the community, which you speak to differently than VCs and institutional investors,
Mm.
they are truly investing in you. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like the
Yeah.
brand and the business is one thing, and it certainly plays a part in this, but like, they're investing in you. You know what I mean? And so your authenticity, your transparency, what you stand for means something to them. There's so many people that I've run into some of our investors in person, and they're like, I love what you stand for. You know what I mean? And because you stand on these principles,
Right.
I felt confident being able to invest in you, whether I make my money back or not. I just wanted to be a part of this and support what you're building
Yeah.
because I believe in what you stand for. You know what I mean? And so I
Yeah.
think we're
Love
just in
that.
an era now where people want to see who's behind the brand, what are their values, what do they stand for, what do they believe in.
Yeah.
And I think those are all important parts of not only building a community, but building a community around like this.
Love that, man. That is a beautiful note to end on. And I've taken up far too much of your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I found it like absolutely fascinating, not just the WeFunder aspects, but like your kind of personal journey and the struggles there and like how you kind of came through that. And yeah, it was such a honor to work with you on this. I'm super stoked about what you're building, the community you've built, the mission, the movement. And yeah, I look forward to seeing kind of where you take this company and this brand. And yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, man.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Lanny and found it as inspiring as I did. To check out the Actively Black Wefunder page and read some of the notes from investors in their community, visit wefunder.com/activelyblack. If you're an apparel founder or any founder interested in letting your customers and community invest in your startup, you can visit wefunder.com/raise or find me on LinkedIn or email me at johnny@wefunder.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.